The key to doing what I do is not super tricky, but it is something that so many women fail to do. The key is listen to men. Listen to them. Find out what their thoughts and feelings are, rather than decide what they are or even what they should be, which I am going to admit I used to do, almost like a default. But about 10 years ago, I started listening to them. Hi, welcome back to Far From Eden. I make it a habit to watch Better Bachelor, Bjorn Andreas Bullhansen. There are so many names out there, even Alexander Grace, Homath. I regularly watch those channels because in addition to listening to the men in my life, which motivated this whole thing, they give me a good perspective on the state of affairs for you all and how you see the things. But again, the key is going in with the intention of listening and realizing that there are things to learn. So, having said that, not only do I watch those gentlemen, but I watch the channels like Man Reacts, Men Only, Man Guide. I watch those, not whatever podcast, not regularly as much, but I sort of check in to see what are they seeing, what are they finding, and why is it relevant? Obviously, these men might make their living doing this. However, that does not negate the honesty and the purity of what they're saying. So, I haven't made one of these videos in a while, but I watched this video from Men Only, and I was like, I have some things to add and some things that he says to fully endorse for whatever it's worth. But what I've found by listening to you guys is that it is valuable to hear what certain women have to say about the ones maybe not behaving in the best way. And that's the terms of service way I'll say it. Because we all know this is going up on YouTube. It will also be on Rumble and eventually other places, but that's yet to be disclosed. And at those places, I can speak truth fully, but here on YouTube, it still has to be a little. But if you know, you know. So let's get into this, shall we? It's a great way to check in with what's going on out there and what certain women the other channels have decided to cover, right? Because we all know there's a plethora out there, to use a word from Three Amigos. Oh, Gen X, we and older millennials, we communicate through song lyrics and movie quotes. That's how you can find one of us. And I bet a lot of you are that way anyway, because we're sort of one type. Anyway, let's see what all is here.
Why am I 35 and still single? I feel like this is an epidemic.
Fellas, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a trend that has women completely stunned. More and more men are walking away from dating, and they're not looking back. From unrealistic expectations to changing relationship dynamics, men are choosing to opt out, and women are finally starting to notice. Let's break it all down. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
His original video will be in the link to it will be in the description. And I encourage all of you to go to that video if you haven't already. Watch it for, 30 seconds and give it a like, because it certainly deserves it, even before my commentary is added.
Love bomb, gaslit, and ghosted all in 48 hours. I've been single for about 2 years. Legally single for 6 months. And I haven't wanted to get back into the dating.
I'm sorry. Single, legally single. Do you see that little definition switch there? I wonder if her legal husband would say the same. And if that means you've been single but legally single, then what does that contract even mean? Nothing. Because if you can just break it so flippantly, doesn't mean anything. That's why men are not signing them anymore, and good for them.
Dating world until kind of recently, and I wouldn't even say that I want to get fully back in there, but I thought, what the hell, let's give it a shot. Thinking was my first mistake. I just remember the love bombing and the gaslighting and then ghosting seemed to take more than 48 hours. Clearly, y'all have stepped up your game. I can't even be mad at it. A little impressed. Actually, a lot impressed, because goddamn, 48 hours. Right as
Maybe that's all the time it took to find out what you're about. Did you ever think that? Like maybe 48 hours and he's like, no. Did you ever think it might be something that you were found wanting? No, it's him being an evil man, using, and she loves to use those key words that women throw out there. Gaslighting is one of their favorites. Why? Because he seemed interested in you? Maybe he was until he found out more. I mean, when the women do it, that's not gaslighting, right? They just change their minds, or they're not really all the way into it. Maybe he's like, you don't have the same values. I mean, but you're not allowed to do that. You see that? You're not allowed to do that. If you do that, you're malicious. Automatically. There can be no other reasons. Certainly not that it's her fault.
I started to figure out there was something off, he was gone. I can't be mad at that. And this is for men or women. If you're considering getting back out into the dating pool, mind you, I'm 40.
Do you hear the children in the background? Just to tell you, like, immediately I was like, wait, there are children in the background. What are you doing? You're going to make videos about yourself and how everybody's so bad to you and men are with you for 48 hours and then they peace out. Your children need you.
It's not better. It's not. It's worse. It's worse. Just get a hobby. Get a hobby. Get a dog. Get a cat. Get a hamster. It's going to be better than what's out there, I promise. Don't get me wrong. I'm probably still going to try this again in 6 months. I haven't learned yet.
She said she's been single for 2 years and acts like it's some kind of mystery. Let's break this down. 2 years of no dates leading anywhere. 2 years of scrolling through dating apps and rejecting every boring guy. 2 years of complaining about men but never looking in the mirror. 2 years of working on herself but somehow never fixing the mindset that keeps her single. And now, after 2 years, what's the conclusion? That men are trash? That modern dating sucks? That nobody is serious anymore? Or maybe, just maybe, the issue isn't men. See, a lot of women say they want a relationship, but what they actually want is the fantasy. The romanticized, picture-perfect, effortless love story. They don't want to put in the work.
Also, can I just point out too, you're a divorced single mom. And if you are on these first dates talking about, well, I've been single for 2 years, but I've only been divorced for 6 months. Honey, you're surprised why you can't find a good quality man? You're getting vetoed.
They don't want to compromise. They don't want to self-reflect. They want to find the one without ever being the one for someone else. So here's the reality check. If you've been single for 2 years and every man you meet isn't good enough, there's a good chance your standards are unrealistic, your expectations are unfair, or your attitude is the problem. Because the truth is, good men are out there. They're just no longer entertaining the women who don't bring peace, respect, or genuine partnership to the table. So if she's been single for 2 years, maybe it's time to stop blaming men and start asking the hard questions.
People talk about how bad the national dating scene is, but you don't really get it until you are here. And I don't even fully get it because I'm not in it. I'm engaged, but my sister has gone on a lot of dates with a lot of Nashville men, and it is just, I'm just a bystander, and it is actually the worst pain I could ever wish on someone, probably. There was this guy that they matched on like a dating app or whatever, and they've been texting, and they sometimes would see each other when they're out, but they never like went on an official date because he never asked her. And then one time I'm out with her and we run into him, and he's like chatting with me. He's like talking about how great she is. I'm like, yeah, so like why haven't you guys gone on a date? And he goes, well, she hasn't asked me. This man was 34. And I shouldn't be shocked by what I hear from men, but I am every single time. Like somehow they get you. And my jaw dropped, and I said, be a man.
Okay, and you know what that is, and you decide what that is? Do you? Has anybody said, be a woman? I mean, maybe a good response to be a man is, well, I will when I find a real woman.
And then I walked away. What do you mean she hasn't asked me? Men don't want to be men anymore, and it's an epidemic.
All right, let's get into it. Women always say, men don't want to be men anymore. They love to complain about how men aren't stepping up, aren't leading, aren't taking charge. But here's the thing. Who's been screaming in men's faces for the last decade that masculinity is toxic? That being a man in a traditional sense is oppressive, outdated, or problematic? Women. For years, society has been pushing the idea that men need to be softer, more sensitive, less dominant. Every little thing men naturally do, being assertive, taking charge, standing firm in their beliefs, has been labeled as toxic masculinity.
And that they want equality. They want equality. So then, why is it his responsibility to ask? Why is it his responsibility to pay? You either want equality or you want him to be a man. But you don't want him to be a man. You don't. You don't. Because that is toxic masculinity, as it says right here. That's, and so you need to, I'm being sarcastic, you have to anticipate which parts of being a man she wants and which parts of being a man she doesn't want. That's not a person, that's a puppet. And she's just mad that you're not, you don't have your strings attached. You're not manipulatable, not easily manipulated. That must be so frustrating. That's why she's mad. These men are not looking to be owned and used as utilities. They're trying to give women what they've said they wanted. Funny, it's almost like they don't want what they said they wanted, because they don't.
So, men did what women said they wanted. They backed off. They stopped leading. They started second-guessing themselves. And now, those same women are turning around and saying, where are all the real men? You can't spend years telling men that their masculinity is dangerous, that their natural instincts are oppressive, and then act surprised when they stop being the men you claim to want. You can't have it both ways. You wanted men to change. Well, congratulations, they did. And now what? You're mad about it? The truth is, women have spent a decade rewriting the rules, only to realize too late that the version of men they helped create.
I'm sorry, he must be young. A decade rewriting the rules? No, they've been doing it for over 100 years, rewriting the rules. It's just, if you just now woke up or you're just going by your experiences, yeah, it's gotten worse in the last 10 years. Before that, it was, before that 10 years, it was worse than the 10 years before that. And then before that, it's the camel's nose, right? Once the camel's nose is stuck in the tent, all of a sudden, The next thing you know, a whole camel's in there. But some people didn't notice the camel's nose or its neck or its shoulder. And then they see the camel like all the way up to like its last rib in the tent. And they're like, wow, this camel has started sneaking into the tent. It's like, no, it's been sneaking in that tent for a really long time. You just didn't notice all the different times it like got further and further in. And that's how it gets there. That's how they move us to the left. That's how feminism progresses. A little bit at a time. That's how it's always been done. Whenever anything comes into society that they want, the state, the powers that be, they don't do it all at once, because then it's super noticeable. And the bad repercussions are super noticeable. They do it little bits at a time where they're like, no, look at this is a good thing. And they astroturf it so it looks like a bunch of people want it. So that shocked me a lot about this video, that they've been changing the rules for the last 10 years. I'm like, dude, you have no, that's not the case. I mean, no fault divorce, the first implementation of that in the United States was in California in 1969. I'd say that's rewriting the rules by a lot, just the cultural implications. So I just wanted to add that to this. I appreciate his perspective a lot, but it's, you know what I mean? It's sort of just like looking through a toilet paper roll, you know what I mean? Because it is much broader than that, and much broader than just the dating scene. People can look back to like their family court cases 20 years ago, and they're like, yeah, that's probably when it hit its peak of being the worst. But you guys tell me if I'm wrong about this. How many decades have we been rewriting the rules? How many decades has that been going on? Really think about it.
Create isn't the version they actually want. They wanted men to be emotional, vulnerable, less aggressive. But when a man actually is that way, suddenly he's not a real man. When he hesitates before making a move, because he's been conditioned to fear being labeled as creepy, suddenly he's weak. Men didn't change because they wanted to. They changed because they were told, over and over again, that they had to. And now that they have, the same women who demanded the change are the ones complaining that men don't act like men anymore.
Also, mothers being the dominant child raiser, right? Even in intact marriages, they're raising their boys to not expect a woman to do all these things for them. Don't you? I don't want to raise you that you expect the woman to do all this. I want to raise you to respect women. We know what the code is for that. We want you to, defer to her, etc. Treat her like a princess. Even if you work full time and she works part time, help her with the household, everything. Like, they're raising their boys to be soft and to defer. And then these guys grow up thinking, I know how to respect women. I know how to treat women. And those are the ones that get walked all over. And I mean, because at the end of the day, women don't respect those men. It's a catch-22, and you guys know it.
Well, whose fault is that? At some point, women need to take accountability. If you want strong, masculine men, then stop demonizing masculinity. If you want leaders, stop attacking men for taking charge. If you want men to pursue you with confidence,
if you want leaders, start following. Stop arguing. Start cooperating.
stop calling them predators for showing interest. You can't shame men into changing and then get mad when the change isn't what you wanted. You can't push an agenda for years and then turn around and say, wait, where are the real men? They're exactly where you left them. wondering why they're being blamed for following the rules that women themselves put in place.
So, controversial take, but then again, when am I not? And even stuff that I don't think is controversial, people will still say it's controversial. So here we are. But I was thinking the other day, and I think about this a lot, and I think about why so many men are angry at women that are happy to be.
They're not angry. We saw this in one of the most recent videos I did. Like, they're not angry at you. They don't strongly dislike you. That is not the case. Use that word instead of the meaner word for it, because YouTube also doesn't like that word. Isn't that insane? I learned that with our Manipulated Man series. Goodness gracious, YouTube did not like that one. This lady too, I'm sorry, I know it's not the point, but she keeps on like messing with her face, and I'm like, nothing's changing on your face. Like it's already done, I think. I don't know how many layers these chicks put on, and I don't know why they do it. And while they're talking, like, why do they have to do things? It's just really weird. I should know the answer to that. I should be able to explain that. I think it's a level of insecurity. Like they don't know how to just talk to the camera. Actually, the body language behavioral analyst guys that I watch would say it creates a barrier. People do that when there's some stress, or sometimes it can be done when they're being dishonest. I'm not saying anything. I'm not accusing anybody, but they often will put a barrier between themselves and their audience or their interrogator or what have you, because it increases their level of comfort to have something between. I'm literally just realizing this as we're talking, as I'm talking to you, because I'm like, oh yeah. The behavior analyst guys will say that's what it is, creating a barrier. Well, why would you need to do that? That's weird.
Child-free and single, and the biggest insult they can offer us is you're going to die alive with cats or dogs or some kind of pet. And I see so many.
It's not an insult. It's not an insult. It's a warning.
Women rejoicing in this and being like, fuck yeah, pets, no children, no commitment, no raising a man like a second child. Where is the point where I'm losing here? This sounds like the ideal situation. Now, obviously, it doesn't apply to all women. I'm talking to women that are single by choice. I'm talking about women that choose not to have children. Obviously, this doesn't apply to the women that have husbands and are happy, and that have children and are happy, and that is a life they wanted, and they made that decision, and they are very happy with that decision. This does not obviously apply to them. But so
they're trying. It's funny. This is change in a lot of these women. They're trying to make a point of not shaming people who would say make the choices that I agree with, right? Because they used to really shame that. And we started saying, hey, how come women supposedly can choose all the things, and have her, obnoxious posh accent, but women can choose all the things unless what they want is a traditional family. Well, she's trying to make the case like, oh, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Look, don't attack me. It means that this message is having a bit of an effect, because they no longer feel like or think that they can attack women who make these choices. Now, by and large, they still do. In real life, they still do. I have a lady who works for me, helping me do this stuff. She's 23. She has 3 kids, I think 3 or 4. I can't keep up. And she made the choice to marry young and stay home and, follow her husband and be submissive and all the things, right? She gets pushback all the time. And so do her sisters that have made the same choices. They constantly get sly remarks about their choices. So that's still there. However, I see a change in the fact that a woman like this is making it clear that if you're happy and you've made these choices, she's not talking about you. That's progress. I know. Look, I'm not trying to be annoyingly optimistic, but it's my nature to be that way and to look for the hope and look for the good things. Now, just to be clear, when I point out the things that are moving in the direction that I think is good, I am not giving the green light to go sign that contract. I will never be in favor of a government marriage contract. I will never, because I think that's putting the government before God. I think if you need the government to, even co-sign the marriage covenant, then it's taking away, because you don't need anything in addition to that. But they want their little sticky fingers in it. And it's sticky because when the whole thing blows up, they get $1 billion a year, basically fleecing the man. Usually there's going to be people that are like, well, in my case, I know a person, my neighbor's cousin's best friend actually paid her husband alimony. And I'm like, I'm not talking about exceptions. We all know it's generally the man's income that they siphon off to get this $1 billion. And it isn't that they get the $1 billion and they're like, ha ha ha, I stole the money. It's so important to me. They just print more money when they want to. What's important to them is that they took it from you. They took it from you. And they're propagating this idea that she deserves it. So, didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but I think it was a necessary one. Because it doesn't just stop with this lady putting on her makeup talking about, oh, they are angry because they say that we're going to end up with cats. No, they're like, you're going to end up with cats. You're making these choices. The choices, you know what? I wish more women understood that the choices that you make now affect where you will be later. And that it's possible you might not be making good ones, and it might not be all sunshine and rainbows when you're alone every night in your house with your animals. It might get old. You might get lonely. You might actually realize that this independence and individuality and everything is not fulfilling. No matter how much you lie to yourself or us.
Women like myself that would be more than happy to die alone. If I meet the love of my life, great. If I don't, also great. I'm really content with both options. I've enjoyed being in relationships and I've enjoyed being single. I force myself to get uncomfortable with being single so that if that ever was the reality for the rest of my life, as a woman that doesn't want children and who finds it hard to meet men that don't want children, will I be okay with it? Yes. And
well, if you're going to be okay with it, why do you have to practice it? And practicing it now, knowing it's practice, is not the same as living it. We're not telling the truth. You know what I think I'll do too? After I'm done with this, I think I'll rewatch this video and really pay attention to the times that she brings her hand forward and is doing unnecessary whatever, and what she's saying when she's doing that versus when she takes it away and she says something. I bet that's interesting to do. You guys go back to the Men Only channel and watch it like that and see if you're a psycho like me and you find that interesting, because I bet there's a pattern. I bet there's a pattern there.
I was content with that quite a while ago. So both suit me, both I'd be okay with. But whenever you say this, there's a lot of men that really hate it and they try to throw spinster at you, or they try to throw old or damaged goods or tainted, or, the bog standard misogynistic bullshit that we hear all the time. And I was thinking to myself, why do these men get so angry? Why do they hate the idea of me doing something by myself in my home alone that has nothing to do with them?
They don't hate it. Why do you think that they hate it? Maybe they're just describing. It's not a vindictive thing. It's kind of like, well, why are you choosing that? Why would that be preferable to you? Just so you know, the trajectory of this is this.
And I'll tell you the conclusion I drew from this. May not fully be the truth, but it's what I think is to be the truth about a lot of misogynistic men. And that is that men really hate their own company, and that these types of men, not all men, and that these types of men really don't know how to be alone because the voices in their head are too painful. The trauma, the wounds from childhood, all this stuff comes up. All the things that they don't want to face.
That's what women do, and that's why we always have noise, like television's playing or this is playing, and we don't value the silence that men do. Men value quiet, peace, silence a lot more than women do. And I know that when there is silence, that's when you can hear your own thoughts more. Which one runs from that the most? Projecting heavy here.
They've constantly ignored since they were children, that comes up, and the silence is too loud. And because the silence is too loud, they can't stand being by themselves. So because women are now very okay with that, we will often sit in our trauma and our wounds and our pain, or we'll take ourselves to therapy or journal. We might do all of it, and we're very okay with it. The idea of a woman being okay with something they're not, I think they're jealous of. On top of that, if those women are okay with that and they choose to go and be single and not involve themselves with men, and not have a partner, that means there's more of these men left over about a woman doing emotional labour for them, which means they're forced to be in their house, in their head. And I think, and I don't think these are all the reasons, but I think these are two of the big reasons. I think that's really uncomfortable for them. Because for me, if I met a man and he said, I really want to have a family, I wouldn't be like, how dare you want to have a family? And if I met a man and he said, I really want to be by myself, I don't want to date somebody, I'd be like, good for you, bro. Yeah, you see so many of these men that when women are like openly opting into it, because they don't want to do that, and because they can't fathom doing that, they think it must be a lie. Because men think from their perspective that we think somewhat like them, even though we don't, the same way we as with women often think the men might think more like us than they act.
Yep, you're doing it right now. And also, they think it's a lie because it's very likely a lie, and they can see the outcomes. They know the rate of SSRIs/antidepressants. Like, okay, I call it a fairy tale if I didn't respect fairy tales so much.
Actually do. We are quite diverse. I think a lot of men think, I can't imagine doing that. So how are you able to do that? And because I don't understand it, what do? We don't understand something and we are ignorant. We become angry. We shout at it. We end up projecting our inner pain that we feel towards that situation. So if we're not okay with something and you can do it easily, that triggers us. And I honestly think that for all the women I know where I say, how would you feel about dying alone with cats? How would you feel about dying alone without family? How would you feel about, just going to a coffee shop with all those other little old ladies? How would you feel about that? So many of them, the ones that don't want children or the ones that are really sick of dating shitty men, they're already content. But loads of men I know are not content with that idea. And loads of men I know can't imagine doing that. And I honestly think it's because when you sit in silence and when you're in your aloneness, and lots of men are used to distracting themselves, but as you get older, you can't distract yourself in the same way because your boys are married and your boys have families and your boys have kids.
If they have families and then where are the little ladies that you're going to talk to coming from? I'm not good at math, but if they're all off with their partners, they're all off with their wives, who are you sitting and talking to? Like, I guess the ones that didn't get married, like, it doesn't make any sense, lady. And who's the one going off about? Like, this is a complete confessional. Like, you don't see it, but you're telling us so much more about you than you are about men. You don't seem to know the first thing, ma'am. You really don't, because she doesn't do the listening to them. Because she's so wrong. I'm like, who are you even talking about? These are not men it's not how they are, okay?
Kids, you are now forced to sit in that aloneness. And men since childhood have never faced their aloneness and have never faced their pain and have never faced their trauma. And so because they'll now be forced to do it with nobody being their companion and either helping them through it or serving as a distraction, that scares the fuck out of them. And to add to that, I also think this is the reason why a lot of men want children. I mean, I have a whole different take on this, and that's for a different day because I'd be here forever. But I think a lot of men want children because once you've got the girl and once you've got the kids, if your girl ever decides that she's not okay with the treatment you're giving her, because men somehow think that they're entitled to unconditional love, and they don't realize that your girl can unconditionally love you and still leave you.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I mean, there's like how much Botox do we have? We have no facial expressions. And I don't know, the dead eyes of a shark?
That's not what the unconditional love is. That's you want a girl to unconditionally stay for your BS. But because a woman might...
Oh, I'm sorry. Are they the only ones that do things that are annoying or whatever? Because women don't have any of that. Yeah, you stay through the BS. That's right, you do. You stay through people's good times. Do you know what for better or for worse means, lady? I mean, how strong are we? How strong are we women if we can't ride out some storms and forgive and have grace for people? We've been told that that's taking men's BS and that we don't know our self-worth when we do that. But it's a complete lie through propaganda, movies, even your counselor will tell you that stuff. But you ask people who the happiest people are. It's the people that have made that commitment, stayed true to that commitment, have ridden out the storms, because there are people who have done that. It is rare. But this lady is just saying things that she wants to be true.
Might one day turn around and go, this behavior isn't good enough, I'm not happy, and instigate a divorce. Well, at least if I've got the kids, I've got somebody there to look after me and love me unconditionally. And I've been having this conversation a lot recently where I say, children do not love you unconditionally. They are dependent on you because you are literally their means of survival. Once that child gets to the age of 15, 16, sometimes even younger, and realizes you're a piece of shit, they will not unconditionally love you anymore. Once a lot of children grow up and realize who you are as a person, that unconditional love goes out the window. If anything, the wife that stays by your side through thick and thin, as long as you're not a total piece of shit and it's actually reasonable things to stay with somebody through, that's unconditional love. That's unconditional love. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents worth. I actually have a lot more sense to give on this because I have a lot of opinions and I spend a lot of time observing and talking to men in so many different ways where so many of them tell on themselves without realizing they're telling on themselves. And I will ask them key questions, whether that be through my job, coaching, or through...
Oh my God, her job is coaching. And she said that they tell on themselves without realizing they're telling on themselves. Do you see why I had to make sure you guys saw this video? Imagine having this little self-awareness. Like, lady, that is exactly what you've been doing this whole entire time.
Just everyday life things, work that I used to do, working in all different backgrounds, being on the train, having a conversation with a guy that's married but wants me to not realize he's married because he just took his ring off 5 seconds before talking to me. Loads of different backgrounds where I talk to men. I will ask them specific questions where I know they're going to tell me something they don't realize they're telling me, and they tell themselves all the time. And so for me, a lot of these men that are married and unhappy and they're cheating, or a lot of these men that are angry that women are making the choice to choose to live without them, a lot of it is because they're scared of being left behind, because we actually do better at being by ourselves than they do.
You do better at being by yourself than they do. That's not true. And we're going to have a part 2 to this. I'm so excited. We're going to also have a part 2 because it's long, but it is necessary. So hold that thought, lady. We're going to continue with all of these copes about how, oh, it's totally fine if we're alone at the end. Yet you're seeking a relation. Like, no, it's not true. And I know you guys, nobody wants to be alone, but even Paul said it is better for a man to be alone. You know what I mean? But I don't think the same is true for women. And if we don't start making better decisions And some of us, it is kind of too late because we have masculinized ourselves through trying to compete with men, and we have had too many relationships, and we've been a 304, right? And that does ruin your ability to pair bond and to have a true and solid relationship with the person you're going to commit your entire life to. Like, you become less able to do that. But if women don't start making better choices as a whole, this whole thing falls apart. And I don't see it turning around anytime soon. The progress is too minimal, too slowly. And the pressure and the propaganda is huge because the state does not want a nuclear family. But I'm going to keep hoping for some kind of sight of it turning around. And even if it's not going to turn around as a whole, I want to at least wake as many men up as I can so they don't walk right off the cliff. And try to speak truth, and whatever women can open up their ears and hear it, the better for society. Because we need the better women to call out the worse women. Because nobody listens to men anyway. But that's it for this installment. Next installment is going to be in the next video. I love you guys so much. Please protect your peace. Guard it with everything you have. Feed your souls. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.